Welcome. I'm Travis.
And I'm Tyler, and this is Strategies for Success, a show that explores many topics while aiming to equip listeners with simple and practical lessons you can use in your everyday life.
Now join us on our journey as we reach for the impossible.
Welcome back, guys. I'm Tyler,
Hey, this is Trav.
and our episode today is Be a Leader and Others Will Follow.
That's right.
So, Trav, you ever had a boss that you either liked working for or you didn't like working for?
Yeah. So I think we all have, if you really start thinking about it, and think about the bosses and the leaders that you have, and you can always think, maybe you've had some really, really bad ones, but most of the time you can think of some good attributes. You know, maybe a boss was a really hard boss, but he got a lot of stuff done. You know, he's very successful. And then maybe you had the fun boss, but he never could make payroll, you know, because he wasn't able to be on time and prompt with things. And one thing that I've always taken away from working with different people is I've tried to write down and remember mentally the things that I thought, man, that was awesome. That guy recognized me. I have a leader that I'm working with right now with boys ministry, and that guy remembers everybody's name. I was standing there and he called out random kids at camp and he was like, "Hey, how's your mom doing?" And he knew their mom's name and from like all over the state. And I was thinking, man, I'm lucky if I can remember my own name every day. And this guy's just laying it out there. And he was very personal and he looks you in the eyes. And even when I'm talking to him and I'm nobody special, I don't know him just super well, but he makes you feel very, very important. And that's one thing that I've marked down that, hey, I want to be a leader like that.
Yeah, and everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, just in general, but also in leadership. So right there, remembering someone's name, that's that guy's one of his strengths, and people will remember him for that. I remember, and I can't remember which president it was, but there was one president that I remember reading about that he remembered everybody's names, people that could be considered much less prestigious than him, but he would remember their name, and that obviously stuck out to people because I was reading about it. So, but anyways, there's a lot of different types of leadership. I have a sports background. Travis and I were talking earlier about this and kind of using a football analogy, but having a coach, so there's an owner, they're kind of the bigger picture type of person. A coach could be more like, hey, I'm going to tell the players what they need to do, and then say the leader on the field would likely be the quarterback if you're on offense. They're going to be out there getting everybody in the right position and facilitating the ball around and making sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing on the field, but they're on the more hands-on, they're on the ground type of leader. So they're all different. They're all important. There's been a lot of different, and I always watch sports. I think about, Travis was mentioning the different types of leadership. Some people are really hard. I think one coach that a lot of people come to mind, or a couple of them, is Nick Saban for Alabama, Bill Belichick for New England. They were super hard-nosed, old-school guys that just got stuff done and they just won. But now a lot of their former players talk about how difficult it was, and every day they were getting pushed, but it made them better for it. There's been some other coaches that had different leadership styles. Maybe they were a little more fun with their players and they still had performance, but they maybe didn't have the lasting legacy and performance that some of those other coaches did. There's just a lot of different ways and philosophies to do things, and you can find success. You got to find what suits you and that you can do naturally.
So Tyler comes with the sports background, and I love history. I drive my family nuts every time we're on vacation because I want to stop at every museum along the way. But as we were getting ready for this episode, there was a few that came to mind. Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte. You know, these guys all obviously had major flaws, but they were also remembered as great leaders. And one of those being Napoleon. The story goes that as they had reached the edge of the map, going into, I guess, parts of Africa, and the map no longer went past a certain river, and they were very uncertain what they were going to do if they were going to cross. And Napoleon mounted his horse and just rode right across the river, and he said, "Well, are you guys coming?" And next thing you know, instead of standing there in chaos, they all started plunging into the river, and across they went, and they just started writing the map. And there's also some of these, you know, with history, there's some of these that are legends, which is history with a little bit of spice. But there was a great walled city, And Alexander the Great marched up to the city and gave them a condition for surrender. And they're like, we outnumber you and we're behind the wall. Why are you offering surrender to us? And he said, because my men are willing to follow me anywhere. They're willing to die for the cause and they will fight to the last man. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, that's bold talk. So he ordered his men to line up and they started marching, and they marched off of a cliff. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, just right off. And he finally ordered them to stop. And it's the story, or the legend goes, that they surrendered the city because they knew that his men were willing to follow him to the last man, fight to the end. And obviously the guy that was in the city didn't believe his guys were willing to have that much commitment either. So you have to almost be, in those situations, you got to have that quarterback type mentality that you're leading from the front line. And that's hard sometimes.
Oh yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to be in some leadership positions over the years. Coming from a sports background, my mentality, I wasn't always super vocal, and now I think I've grown a lot in that area and became a little more vocal. Not still as much as some other people, but anyways, I always tried to lead by example, and the leading others will follow. I think that probably worked a little bit better in sports than it did in business sometimes, because I've had to change my perspective. That was my frame of reference, was from sports. And so there we had a clearly defined goal from the coach, and everybody, if you don't want to win, you weren't supposed to be there. I mean, you wanted to win a game, you wanted to win a bunch of games and have a successful season. Business and work, people have different goals. So some people want to conquer the world, some people just want to get a paycheck. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can go into. Maybe you don't have the right people working there. I don't know. But there's a lot of ways you could go with that. But basically, when you get older, everybody's got their own families, got their own problems, situations. People have different goals in mind. Now, you may have a goal with your business or organization or team, whatever, that everyone's trying to accomplish at the same thing. But at the end of the day, it's not as easy as saying, hey, let's go win this football game, win this basketball game. There's a lot of other things going on, because one thing that I found that's really makes things difficult is when money gets involved, not everybody's getting paid the same. So that really messes things up a lot. So, leading by example, I think is very effective overall. I think it's very effective in some situations, but as I've grown over the years, gone to the working world, that's probably not as effective as it was in sports. And now I'm trying to grow other areas of leadership and maybe pivot from being completely like a quarterback to more like, now I got to back up and be a coach a little bit, maybe even a little bit of an ownership type of thing where I got to tell people what to do and delegate and push people in the right direction. And I'm still working on that a lot.
Yeah, let's be clear. We're not telling you that you have to be the quarterback to be a successful leader. In fact, you may have to be the owner, but then that means you need to have a coach, and that coach needs to have a quarterback, and it needs to be delegation.
There needs to be all of them.
Exactly.
And maybe that is one person if you're a smaller organization or something, but you got to be a little bit of all of them wrapped up in one person.
I'll tell you what I've realized in business, that I think for leadership, you don't always have to be the guy doing everything. Sometimes you feel like you need to. You're like, I want to be a good leader. I don't want to be making these guys do everything. I need to get out here. But then you're failing your team by not being the coach or being the owner.
Yep.
And but I think your guys need to know that you're willing to do it.
Yeah, I've learned that the hard way. A lot of times I think, well, I got to go do that. Or sometimes, I'm a perfectionist in a lot of ways. So sometimes I probably don't let go of things enough and try to do everything myself. And that doesn't work. It winds up causing the whole team failure in the end, just like Travis was saying.
Hey, this isn't a brag on me, but like one day I went in and I try to pick up trash when I see it on the lot. I try to do what I expect my employees to do. I saw a mess in the bathroom and I went in and cleaned it. And I think one day I took a couple guys by surprise because then they're scrubbing a toilet, but you got to let them know that, hey, I'm willing to get down here and get dirty with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm not asking you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And
a lot of times you're not asking them to do something that you haven't already done yourself to get to where you're at. And a lot of times people don't see that. They forget about things, or they only see you for a few hours a day or maybe 8 hours a day or whatever, but they don't always see everything that goes into the back end. And same thing with nowadays, you can see someone on social media and you think, man, that guy's living the life. He's playing golf for a job, but you don't see the hours and hours. He could have been living in his car for years just to get to that point. So you don't really know everything that goes into it. But
That's a failing. I mean, we're talking strategies for success, if you want to know how to fail, just start getting the measuring stick out, because there's no way that you're going to ever measure up to everyone around you, because everybody else, like Tyler said earlier, has different goals. And you need to pick your goal, have a clear, defined dream, and then have a support team that's there with you that has the same vision and goals.
Yep.
And you're always going to have, I know at work we call it like have a manager or employee mentality. So, and that doesn't mean that they're bad employees, but at 5:30, there's people that are going to leave. And then your management team is there to make sure that it gets locked up, you know?
Yep.
And so you got to know the plays that I guess not just the plays, but also the positions on the team, and know who's doing what. And then also be there to support your team and let them know that you actually do care about them.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, it's time for the challenge.
It's time for the challenge. Travis is going to give it to you guys this week.
All right. So this one's pretty tough, guys. So I hope you're ready. So to be a leader that others will follow, I'm going to tell you today to ask someone to review you. So what does that mean? Well, if you want to get real complicated, you can do it for free. Get online and do a Survey Monkey and send it out to a few people and let them send you a review. It will unanimously come back and you'll be able to see the results. But I got to tell you, if you're a very critical person, or you also perfectionist, you know, sometimes it's hard reading some notes that people leave about yourself. So you got to be, as a leader, good leaders listen and they take notes and they're like, hey, you know, you're right. I need to make some areas of improvement. So the challenge this week, to be clear, is to let other people review you. Could be one person, could be your spouse, could be your boss. It could be anybody that you choose to let them review you, but do the review and then look at it and say, look, I need to read this with an open mind, and how can I improve myself?
Exactly.
So we give the challenge, we give some words of wisdom, and now it's time.
Now it's time to execute.
That's right.
Thank you for learning with us.
Join us next time as we reach for the impossible. I'm Travis.
And I'm Tyler.
And this is
Strategies for Success.